And in 10, corruption. It took me a while to realize, but the FNAF series is all about corruption, at least in a metaphorical sense. Sure, the story is about kids getting murdered and possessing animal-themed robots, but a huge theme of the series is corruption. William was corrupted into killing, those kids were corrupted by William, the animatronics that got possessed were corrupted, the restaurant was corrupted, and corruption is an even more prevalent theme now, and like it's literally occurring. Like with William literally corrupting a hard drive that gets scanned into FNAF VR, which he then corrupts, you know, because he corrupts the game. William corrupts Jeremy and gets him to off himself. He corrupts Tape Girl and Vanny. He corrupts animatronics in Security Breach and Special Delivery. Each of his children get corrupted and killed. Like, it's a main theme of the series, and William can't die until the corruption stops. I just thought that was kind of cool. It's present literally everywhere. And at 9, spring locks. A lot of people didn't understand what I was talking about when I was saying that Crying Child's death makes no sense, so I'm going in depth here so I can explain how the spring lock mechanics work in universe and how this applies to Crying Child's death scene. The term spring lock in and of itself is kind of confusing, since it can be used to refer to multiple things. A spring lock can talk about an animatronic that can switch between suit and robot modes, like Golden Bonnie that William uses to kill the original 5, and the Golden Freddy we see in FNAF 4's cutscenes. We know it can be a suit because we see William putting someone into it in one of the mini-games in the back room. And spring lock is also a term for the mechanism used to hold back robotic parts in those specific suits so a person can fit inside. We know these can fail when exposed to water, since this is how William got stuck in the Springtrap suit in FNAF 3's minigames. So most people assume that Crying Child's tears loosen the locks of the mouth, and that's why he gets chomped. But that was already in animatronic mode, so the spring locks weren't active, and they couldn't fail because they aren't in use. And there wouldn't need to be any in the mouth to begin with, only the pistons used to move the jaw up and down since no human body part is in the mouth. And if we're wrong and this is just an animatronic without suit capabilities, there would be no spring locks in the suit at all. Now a human skull would require 1900 newtons of force to be crushed, something way beyond what should be used for an animatronic. And even to fracture it, it would require around 1100 newtons, something that would require a piston that uses its own air compressor, and you would need multiple of them. Since that's something we don't see on stage with Freddy, and it would be something that would be impossible to fit inside of him, because like air compressors are huge even with our current technology, that's why Crying Child's death scene is impossible. There is no physical way the animatronic could have crushed his skull, unless there's something going on that we don't know about, which is entirely possible, but highly unlikely. And at 8, paper shadows. Shout out to YouTube user XXShadowFredbearXX-0- for pointing this one out to me, because it actually is really interesting and it's a detail I never noticed. If you have a small detail that I have yet to cover, please let me know in the comments. The comments are really helping me get through these videos, especially this one, so go shoot your shot, and if you do, you might just get a shout out if I use your point. Anyway, Shadow Fredbear pointed out that the Paper Pals, characters I talked about in the previous part, who could seemingly move around at will, are the characters that have shadow counterparts. I described the Paper Pals as Bonnie, Freddy, and a humanoid that could possibly be Balloon Boy. However, the human-like character who has a shadow counterpart is Dee Dee, someone based off the looks of Balloon Boy. The other animatronics, Bonnie and Freddy, each have shadow versions as well that were introduced in FNAF 2. What could this mean exactly? Unknown. I need to kind of work on it. This is something very interesting and I'd like to get to the bottom of it. And at 7, layout. Thank you to YouTube user Octoling for the comments on part 9 pointing this one out. In their comment, they pointed out that FNAF 4 and FNAF 2 have very similar layouts, with 2 entrances on the left and right, with a big one in the center. These being the 2 side vents in FNAF 2 and the doors to the hallways in FNAF 4, and the big door in FNAF 2 being the big closet in FNAF 4. Now if this is because the base coding is the same, at least for the office section, or if it's for another reason is unknown, but it's a tiny detail that you don't really think about, so it belongs on this list. Does it have bigger lore implications? Maybe, but unlikely. I genuinely think that it's because the code is so similar that he might have just copied and pasted with different textures, and instead of lights that we can activate, we end up running to the doors, but either way, it's something to chew on. And at 6, upgrades. How on earth is this franchise able to upgrade its location constantly? You'd think that after multiple deaths of the joint's prime clientele, that the place would be ruined, right? But then these folks come in hitting us with that Freddy Fazbear Mega Pizzaplex. How do they have the money to open a whole, basically, mall after so many kids have gone missing in their establishments? Why do parents let their kids go here? It can't be that they think that it's fake, right? I mean, like, who would believe... Oh wait, I know who would believe that it's fake. The same people that believe that 5 kids actually went missing in a Chuck E. Cheese instead of realizing that it's just a Twitter picture and like a meme. Like, it's funny because it's backwards in this like analogy. I'm sure they wouldn't believe if it actually happened and only believe that it happened here because of the games. Like, but I mean, who knows? Clearly not them. It just doesn't make sense to me. How is this good publicity? Like, even if you go by any publicity as good publicity, this isn't it. It makes no sense, especially in this scenario. Halfway through into number 5, history. Is FNAF history repeating itself? It's an interesting question that we should probably discuss since it seems like it might be. This idea started when I thought about how both dummy-thick versions of Chica lose their beaks, and it escalated from there. Because it seems like William is taking the lives of his original victims again, well, at least by name. Granted, we don't know Tape Girl's name, and it could be Vanny, and we don't know who our character plays in we don't know who our character's name is in FNAF VR, and that could also be Vanny, but technically Vanessa, you know what I mean. Because as Glitchtrap, William has already taken the life of Jeremy, someone we know to be the one who possessed Bonnie based on the FNAF 3 ending, as well as the gravestone screen from FNAF 6. He made Jeremy cut his face off, like how Bonnie at the end of the Pizza Party minigame in the final room is missing his face. We don't know what became of Tape Girl, but she could very well be represented by Chica as well, someone we thought was okay, but then turned out to be incomplete, ergo the missing arm. Not in possession of all her marbles, should I say, as the final tape seems to indicate. It's interesting, and maybe Gregory in Security Breach will end up being the next crying child, but hopefully not Napkin Kid, because Christ. Would that be annoying? And at 4, why Henry? In the original FNAF novel series, to my knowledge, the characters of William and Henry are introduced as business partners. William is the businessman who handles the financial and actual business side of the company, while Henry is the creative one who really works on the animatronics. This could be wrong, but this is how I've been explained and understand their roles. And the characters in the games at least have a similar role layout, with Henry making loads of new animatronics for FNAF 6. But we also know that William was the one who modified the animatronics, or corrupted them, see, full circle, and was the one who built the sister location animatronics and had a robot business called Afton Robotics. So my thought is, if William was already capable of creating these things and this entire company from scratch, since we know that Circus Baby's Pizza World opened after Freddy's, why did William involve Henry at all? Like, wouldn't it just be a liability? Having someone work so closely with the things you intend on using to kill with? Like, it seems stupid to me. Some say that a criminal career starts with too much caution or too much arrogance, but to me, this doesn't seem like either. Maybe too much arrogance, but he had already started killing at this point, so like, what the hell, dude? Was it to keep him close because you wanted to kill his daughter, or was his daughter actually yours? And at 3, Chris Afton. There are a lot of names for Crying Child, and I'm here to set the record straight. None of them have been confirmed. Crying Child isn't even a canonical name. I'm pretty sure it's just another name for the character because he was always crying, or was mostly crying. It's just another name that we gave him. The names I've been seeing recently are Chris, Norman, Evan, and Kyle, and I don't know where most of these came from. Evan comes from the security logbook, and most people seem to think that this is canon, but it's not. They've also had to really struggle to get the N as far as I could tell, so if you want to believe that, currently their name is Eve. Chris is random, and I'm pretty sure came from a FNAF-themed music video. Same thing with that car accident that apparently killed the mother. They're not actually canon. Norman isn't anywhere to be found either, and the same thing with Kyle, because I made that one up. But I'm certain that there will be at least one person who, when I said that, yelled, "Finally!" or something along those lines. Crying Child does not have a name. It's not a tiny detail, but it's something that a lot of people don't really think about. So if you have a detail but put it in the comments with a name that isn't confirmed, it could be about anyone, so I really tend to scroll past those. But I had to set the record straight, okay? No canon name for Crying Child. If you want to call him whatever, it's fine, but don't use it as evidence or say that it's confirmed or canon, because it's not. However, if they have solidly found evidence for all of the letters of Evan, please send the link to me on Instagram so I can like start looking around, like so I can actually see that. but until that point, it's not confirmed. It's even not confirmed after I see it. It's not like I'm the one confirming it, but you know what I mean. Penultimately, in at number 2, Force a Crowd. I proposed the idea last time that perhaps William and his wife, or baby mama, but most likely wife at this point, had 4 kids instead of the 3 we see on screen. This was mostly based off the Immortal and the Restless TV series from Sister Location, where a woman was telling a character meant to represent William that he had a son that clearly was his, but William was denying it, or I guess Vlad was denying it, proposing that maybe he thought she had cheated or didn't want the kid. And after discussing genetics and trying to explain to the people who didn't really understand, it just shows how likely the scenario is. If the babies came out blonde, William might have just thought that they weren't his. But I think later that William realized that the baby was his and wanted her back, or perhaps I'm wrong about the whole he denied it originally thing, and instead he wanted her all along. But it wasn't 100% with me yet, it was still just a theory. Until this comment from YouTube user Saber Sapphire on the Last Tiny Details video. I think we can all agree that Ballora is an allegory for Mrs. Afton. She isn't possessed, because she would have had to be alive to run away with a child, but that after she left, William made this robot as a way to cope. We can also agree that she is a mother figure to the Minirinas, and that's what got us all thinking that she was meant to be the mother in the first place, aside from her song. Well, Saber pointed out the number of Minirinas that Ballora has: 4. Ballora has 4 children, and if she is meant to represent the mother of the Afton kids, this will only solidify this theory more for me. Finally, in at number 1, motivation. While this number isn't based on this comment, a comment from user B Cooper helped spark this idea in my brain, along with the last comment. They said, I think the 4th child is Vanessa, and she was Elizabeth's twin. If there is actually a 4th Afton kid, and if Vanessa is that kid, it would make sense for her to have been Elizabeth's twin. She's the proper age, and they both are blonde with green eyes. We don't have many other features for Elizabeth because, you know, she was an 8-bit, but with the information we have, it matches, and it matches well. It could also be potential motivation for William. Maybe that's why Susie was first, because she looked like maybe the mother perhaps, with blonde hair and blue eyes. Maybe William has green eyes, or like I explained in number 3, they both have the gene, even if it's not visible. This could also be the inspiration behind Baby's mechanics, and why the fun times are meant to capture children. So he could use them to find his other daughter. Hence why he told Elizabeth specifically to stay away from Baby, because he had programmed Baby to look for and capture a child that looked exactly like her because they were twins. He never told Crying Child or Michael to stay away from them, right? At least from what we saw, because they weren't in danger. This could be it. I am 100% certain at this point that the Aftons have 4 kids and that the mother ran away with the 4th. This has to be what's going on, right? It has to be what's going to be revealed in Security Breach. And at 10, Special Delivery. Special Delivery is a weird game, and while I do mean the gameplay aspects like collecting Remnant, in this case I really mean in a timeline sense, since we know it takes place between Help Wanted and Security Breach, but what is the canonicity of this game? Are they actually trying to rebuild their image by sending out animatronics that were supposed to be friendly, or are they intentionally scaring people? And do the customers know if they're going to be scared, like a mail order killer service? Or do they expect an animatronic helper for around the house? And what is with sending out versions of the killer that ruined the reputation of the company in the first place? Like, is it a joke? Is it intentional? Do they know that was the housing for William after they thought he disappeared? Or is this all just fake? One of the games that we know within the universe. Are these animatronics really getting sent to your house, or are we as the player experiencing the same thing someone in universe would experience, like through their phone, an AR game? Like, what is actually going on in this game? And at 9, Hover Hands. I don't think I've mentioned this before in this series, but I noticed something that most people seem to ignore while discussing the ending to FNAF VR. Most people assume that we swapped places with Glitch Trap, that he takes over our body in the final fight. But if when you get onto the stage after he swaps, you can see your hands and headset are missing if you look back to the desk you were at. Your holographic hands are nowhere to be seen. Yes, your controllers are controlling the Glitch Trap suit hands, but if you're really swapped, you would see holographic hands at that spot, most likely waving and taking off the headset. So why aren't they there? Because we don't swap places with Glitch Trap, we merge with him. I think that this is fairly common knowledge by now, but when MatPat first released his video and said Glitch Trap escapes this game through us, nobody seemed to notice that, and he in fact didn't. So there you go. You should have heard it here first, but you weren't subscribed, so don't worry, it's okay. Speaking of that, if you're enjoying the video, why don't you hit that like button? It really helps us out and lets us know what you want to see more of, and while you're doing it, just click subscribe. We're so close to 500,000 subscribers, and we know you love FNAFs, so we're still making FNAF. And it ain't fanfiction. We know there are plenty of FNAF fanfictions, probably too many if I'm honest. The ones we've talked about here are creepypastas, but I guess in a way it's sort of theories. However, have we ever stopped to consider any in-universe FNAF fanfiction? Or, well, at least I guess Freddy Fazbear fanfiction? Whether it be about the games that are in-universe or the characters themselves. Believe it or not, there is in fact Chuck E. Cheese fanfiction, so it is possible. But what would these fanfictions be? What about the Silver Eyes or Fazbear Frights? The novel isn't fully connected to the games, only sharing some similar aspects and characters, right? That's what fanfiction is. And Scott wasn't the only one who wrote these books. He had help. The Silver Eyes was also written by Kiara Breed Risley as well. Hopefully I didn't butcher your name. If I did, I apologize. And Fazbear Frights had help from Ellie Cooper and Andrea Wagner. So technically, since they're not Scott Cawthon, it's just fanfiction that is considered canon. Huh. Gives you a lot to think about, huh? So go ahead, write your fan fiction. Just make sure that it isn't nasty. And don't ship dead kids with their killer or their dead sibling, okay? I can't believe that that's a thing. And it's 7 time travel. So, time travel is possible in the FNAF canon, and at least in the Fazbear Frights book series. Since the first book, Into the Pit, has a story talking about someone getting into a ball pit and time traveling, hot tub time machine style. But like, does that mean anyone can have this happen to them? Like, is it possible that anyone from the games could have this happen to them? Perhaps Gregory is Crying Child, who fell into a pit and got sucked into the events of security breach, and then we'll go back in time at the end of the game, or well, I guess go back to his time at the end of the game, showing why he fears the animatronics and being in a pizzeria. Maybe William can time travel through the games, and this is him in the far future. There are so many possibilities. Like, maybe this is why the timeline doesn't make any sense, because someone keeps changing it. I solved FNAF. It has its own Barry Allen. And at 6, symmetry. FNAF VR has some interesting story elements that I'd like to point out to you. This was the basis for a personal theory I had a long time ago, where I thought that in FNAF VR, we played as a man named Gabriel who was playtesting the game, since at the end we ended up getting stuffed into Freddy. However, there were other details that drove me to this conclusion, like for example, the fact that Glitch Trap causes Jeremy, a name that we know all too well in this series, to cut his face off, and then Bonnie shows up in the final room in the Pizza Party minigame, missing his face. And that Chica starts off without her arm in the Parts and Service minigame and shows up without the same arm in the final room as well. However, symmetry like this is everywhere in the FNAF series as a whole and not just in this game. Like how William would stuff his victims into the suits and then got stuck in one himself, etc. It's interesting and something I'm sure we'll see more of, so keep your eye out. Halfway through into number 5, Nightmare Mangle. From what I understand with the Nightmare animatronics, a few got added in a Halloween DLC, but only Nightmare Balloon Boy was canon. I may be wrong about this, and it has been a while since I saw that, but to my understanding, Nightmare Mangle was not canon. We determined this had to be because Crying Child hadn't seen Puppet or Mangle yet, but had seen Balloon Boy. However, we know for a fact that Crying Child has seen Mangle. He appears in his sister's room as a torn up plushie next to her bed. There is no stuffing by her bed, which is ironic given the series, but it's still kinda weird that Mangle wasn't deemed canon if it was there. Shout out to Avery Truesdell for spotting this and putting it in the comments of part 9. So if Crying Child does know what Mangle looks like, how is that not canon? Scott went out of his way to say that Balloon Boy was canon, meaning the others had to not be canon, right? I'm so damn confused. I can't do this anymore. No, I'm only halfway through. In it for fake. Much like any YouTube video prank, what if everything in this world is fake? The story, the death, the in-universe minigames, the animatronics and special delivery, help wanted. What if it was all fake and just meant to be a massive marketing stunt that went entirely wrong? Or hell, maybe it went horribly right. If Freddy Fazbear's was dying, much like how Chuck E. Cheese was failing, could it possibly be that Fredbear's was too? And in an effort to keep the business alive, William and Henry created a marketing scheme that would get them some publicity and even bring in some more customers that were fans of horror. I mean, it would explain why William was never convicted and why the investigation was so flawed. They didn't actually check the suits because there was In reality, no bodies inside them. They never leaked blood or mucus or smelled terrible. Why would anyone go if they did? Or stick around when they saw it, or hell, even smelt it? It also explains how, even through all this horror, they were able to expand, eventually opening an entire mall that they called a Pizzaplex. Oh man, am I onto something here? And 3 genes. A lot of people seem to be confused by the genetics of the Afton family. And I've talked about it before, but I'll go over it again for everyone that's new here. Also, hi, thanks for subscribing. We're almost at 500K. That's insane. With genetics, what you see is not all that you get. For example, my sister and I both have dark hair. However, when mine is shorter, and even more so when I was a kid, my hair was much redder than hers. Much redder than it is now, even. This is because red hair is a recessive gene. There are dominant and recessive genes, and it's easiest to describe this using a Punnett square. Let's look at this one for example. Let's say that we're crossbreeding bananas, one green and one more commonly yellow. The green color is dominant and the yellow is recessive, which means that if the banana lies in one of the top 2 spots and it has the green trait, it will be dominant and you'll see green, even if it has the yellow gene, because yellow is recessive and green is dominant. However, as you can see, it is possible to have a green banana have a yellow banana offspring, even if the banana is green, because it also has the yellow gene. So even with the dominant gene, the green banana could have a yellow offspring. Even with another green banana, in fact. However, if this was the case, that new banana would have a 25% chance of being yellow if it has 2 green parents, each with the yellow gene. Like I said, it's a 1 in 4 chance, but it's still possible. This is the case with Elizabeth, where a parent doesn't necessarily have to have the trait visually, but rather in their DNA. I'm not the best at explaining this, but you get the idea. However, Elizabeth isn't ginger, she's blonde, which I don't understand where you got that from. But blonde is also a recessive trait, so the same thing applies. And we haven't seen the mother, or even really William Afton, so she could be blonde. Maybe she also has blue eyes, which is dominant over green, but it's still possible if she has the green-eyed trait, and William does too. And Elizabeth isn't ginger, okay? She's blonde. I honestly don't know where you got that from. What? Come on. Watch the cutscene. And it to Oswald. It may have come across as a joke when I said it in the last part, and how I mentioned that FNAF has its own Barry Allen that's going around messing up the timeline. But you know what? It wasn't. Not anymore, at least. Scott has stated before that the Fazbear Frights books are meant to help us solve bits of confusion in the main FNAF canon, like how William was able to survive being spring-locked and whatnot. But I believe that Scott has given us the biggest answer already in the very first story of the series. Into the Pit is the title of the first story and the first Fazbear Frights book, and is centered around Oswald, a kid who loves to draw but has recently been focusing on furry animals with robots inside. Eventually, he finds a ball pit that sends him through time into the past, where eventually he sees 6 murders and flees back to his time. But he does survive until the end of the story, which is kind of rare for these Fazbear Frights books. I think that it was on purpose. There are a lot of things that contradict themselves in this story, with statements from different characters changing the timeline and making it so damn difficult to navigate. Plus, now we have multiple dimensions to think about with the Fazbear Fanverse Initiative and the book series worlds. But what if the reason the timeline is so clunky is because Oswald is changing it? There isn't much of a connection to the games for these first couple stories, but looking at it like this has it make a lot more sense, and explains all the changes. It's like Flashpoint. Barry knew what was different because he was outside of the timeline change. We're outside this timeline too, and that's why we see the mistakes. This genuinely seems like the only explanation to me. I mean, I know it's highly unlikely, but I mean, what other explanation could there be? Finally, in at number 1, skins. FNAF AR doesn't only have a confusing story, it also has confusing mechanics. Like, for example, if everything is supposed to be real, where are all these skins coming from? And how is it possible? And to that, I think I have a solution. If these skins are meant to be real, because why wouldn't they be? If we can see them, they must be real, right? I think that there is a simple explanation that solves this issue that I've been having for a while. The illusion discs from the Twisted Ones novel that we also see in Sister Location. These, as we know, can easily manipulate the appearance of anything nearby, at least in the minds of individuals close enough to the discs themselves. And this is the most likely scenario to explain how we can change the skins of these animatronics basically at will. It just sets the disc to emit the proper sound, or however it changes the looks of these things. Right frequency, I guess? Which is honestly kinda cool. It would also be cool if we had this in real life so I could change my appearance whenever I wanted, but like just my clothing. You don't want to get rid of the moneymaker right here. Imagine just like changing skins at will like you can in Minecraft or Fortnite. Like it would be fun, but like it would just be clothes. So you can just be like, haha, I'm wearing a banana. Haha, I'm a burrito. Haha, I'm a glizzy gobbler. And at 10, grandfather clock. One of the biggest pieces of evidence for Dream Theory was the grandfather clock sound at the end of your shifts in FNAF 1, 2, and 3. Since why would you hear a grandfather clock in an office? Which makes sense. But thanks to Nightmare Freddy's April Fool's Day mechanics, we know that Dream Theory is false. So why are we hearing a grandfather clock? I mean, there very well could be one in the office, but like, I mean, like, it's not impossible, it's just highly unlikely, but it could also just be that we changed the alarm tone on our phone, and we have an alarm set for 6 a.m., so we know the minute that we can get off the job. I can understand that, especially given the horrific environment this job places us in, and no, I'm not talking about the internet, I'm talking about the job in-game, although it does work for both of us. And at 9, Bonnie goes missing. Aside from being a great name for a children's book, I'm claiming privileges, Scott, that doesn't really help the fact that after Sister Location, Bonnie just kind of vanished, not including FNAF VR, AR, or Ultimate Custom Night. Ultimate Custom Night since it's a dream, FNAF VR because it's just all the games, and AR since it's not really a game, it's a service, at least in universe. And Bonnie isn't in the main lineup for Security Breach, and instead has a bowling alley with no known appearances otherwise. So, what happened? When Chica was left out of Sister Location, we got Chica's Party World as an excuse, but does Bonnie have the same sort of thing going? Did they swap between the events of Sister Location and Security Breach? Like, what on earth is the deal here? Where did Bonnie go? And at 8, why did they make the games? We still don't know what games are the ones created by the Scott Cawthon stand-in in the FNAF universe, but we also still don't really know why either. We hear that he made them on his own to capitalize on the tragedies, which makes sense, but then we also have Tape Girl who tells us that Fazbear Entertainment hired this guy to make the games so that people wouldn't be so apprehensive about returning to their restaurants. That had to have been the way things went, because even we as fans of the series want a real-life Freddy Fazbear's, so I'm sure that in-universe these games have the same effect, whatever the games may be, which would also explain how they were able to expand, which is why that makes more sense than Scott doing it on his own, at least Scott's in-universe counterpart. Why did you have to do this though, Scott? Like, why must you torture me? I mean, it's incredible, and it's great storytelling, but why? And at 7, Glamrock Chica. While YouTuber Daka was doing a live stream for charity, when they would hit certain donation goals, they would unlock a new Security Breach teaser. One of the final ones was a picture of Glamrock Chica smashed in an alley or a junk lot of some kind, which first of all is very reminiscent of the scrapped animatronics from FNAF 6, but ignore that. There is one distinct detail that everyone noticed, but nobody seemed to really question further than why. And that detail being Chica is missing her beak. But not only did the same thing happen to Toy Chica in FNAF 2, but they also share the same body shape. Originally, Toy Chica lost her beak to make her scarier, and somehow Scott made it seem like it had bigger implications in the livestream from MadPat during the FNAF 4 days. Maybe it's because this was coming, or he wanted to make it seem bigger than it was. Or maybe Dream Theory was right for a time, but it isn't anymore. I don't know, I just figured it was an interesting detail that we should keep an eye on. Maybe how she loses her beak will be a big help in solving earlier problems. Or maybe there's something else in this image that I'm missing. I don't know. And at 6, eyes. We all know that Freddy starts moving closer to the end of the original game, and as I've said before, he wasn't really originally meant to move. However, on the cameras, you still don't really see him. It won't be obvious like it is for Bonnie or Chica, but instead you'll see 2 white dots as his eyes. But like, how is this possible? When he does show up at our door, we can see that he has normal animatronic eyes in his sockets like Bonnie and Chica do, so how are there only 2 dots that are really able to be seen? Especially when they're being blocked and no other animatronics do this kind of thing. It's so weird, and I just don't think that it has any like bigger implications, but I still want to know why these white dots come from behind the eyes. Are they that bright? Because those eyes are meant to disperse the light that would normally come from the LEDs, if there are any LEDs behind the eyes, so it's strange in my opinion, and I'll never really be satisfied with the answer, so I'll just move on. Halfway through into number 5, Purple Guy. The FNAF community was up in arms over the true Purple Guy debate after the release of Sister Location and the discovery of the ending. In this ending, we have an end cutscene of Michael walking around after being scooped by Ennard, but then also turning more and more purple as he walked down the street after multiple days, making us question if he was really the infamous Purple Guy. He isn't, since the purple guy isn't physically purple, but this begs the question, why was Michael purple? Most assume that he was in fact a decaying corpse that smells bad, hence the reason for being fired in the original games, but that never made sense to me, since in every form of media, decaying or decayed bodies that aren't supposed to look realistic are shown as green and not purple, because like that would make more sense, at least in my brain it does. However, do you know what is purple? Bruises. We know he isn't dead, so why would his body be rotting? Because it's not. It's being battered from the inside, causing extreme bruising, hence why everyone is scared. They don't understand why this dude is like literally purple, and it's because of all the bruises. And at 4, FNAF IRL. I've made multiple videos about how a real-life Freddy Fazbear's could exist, and may even be coming as early as 2023. But as I was writing this script, I thought, what if we were getting a real-life FNAF crossover? Now, this might be a little outlandish, but bear with me here. We're hoping to get a real-life FNAF in 2023, since that's when Fazbear Frights opens in universe. But it was all speculation and the power of positive thinking. No actual evidence, and Scott even said himself that he wouldn't do it. But are we being set up to think that it's not going to happen, and instead getting one of the most ambitious crossovers of all time? Well, the Fazbear Fanverse Initiative may hold some clues. This is a group of fan game creators that Scott has funded to help make another game, Five Nights at Candy's 4 being the most popular in this group. But this collection of fan games also contains a new version of the Joy of Creation, the Ignited Collection, where, if you're not familiar, you play as Scott Cawthon himself being chased by ignited versions of the original animatronics, basically more withered versions. And since the FNAF multiverse is now a thing thanks to these games and the books, could Scott make this into one of those universes and use that game as a bridge between worlds? It would kind of make sense, but it would also be absolutely terrifying. And at 3, Gotchaverse. Unfortunately, in the FNAF canon, there are now multiple timelines and multiple dimensions thanks to the confirmation of the Fazbear Fanverse Initiative. However, that basically means any fan fiction about FNAF is true in one form or another, and any theory about FNAF is correct in one universe, which unfortunately means that there is an entire canon version of the FNAF Gotcha fandom. Don't get me wrong, it's cringy and it really shouldn't exist, but technically it's canon in another Earth. I don't know what to do with this information. It just kind of makes me sad, honestly. And at 2, passive mode. Shout out to Robert Vazvensky for posting this in the cons of part 9 as well. This really helped me. Why is it that out of the 2 shadow animatronics in FNAF 2, there's one that's passive and one that's aggressive? And why is Bonnie the aggressive one? Shadow Freddy's just chillin', slumped over, not really moving. But Shadow Bonnie will just come in and absolutely torment the hell out of you by flickering your lights and just overall being a tool. But why does this theme remain even after this game, with Shadow Bonnie being aggressive in FNAF AR as well? Is it just the spirits creating these figures that have different personalities? Or is it a different emotion that created these A to begin with, or B, making one more aggressive than the other? I don't know, but it's hella interesting. Because like, if agony caused Shadow Bonnie, but a different emotion caused Shadow Freddy, it would explain why Shadow Freddy is passive. Finally, in at number 1, Oblivious. In a previous video, multiple videos in fact, I've said that the company doesn't care because they're sending and replicating the suit of the dude who caused them to have a bad rap in the first place in FNAF Special Delivery. They're replicating Springtrap and they're just sending him on his way, going like, yeah, go kill more kids. However, a commenter pointed out to me that when discussing Springtrap in the AR emails, they refer to Springtrap as an older Bonnie model, which I find confusing because, well, how do you know it's an older Bonnie model, but then you call it Springtrap in the app? I know that it's because we know him as Springtrap and that's like our universe reason, but assuming we were in the FNAF universe, we would be using the app that at least looks similar to the one that we use, if not the exact same, minus the whole animatronic fight sequences, because those would be happening in real life. And if Springtrap is listed as Springtrap and not older Bonnie, Fazbear Entertainment needs to explain. Fazbear, explain! What do you mean it's Arkansas? But also, why would you not recall the animatronics and just go get them? Or have somewhere people can deposit them? Or company-wide shutdown switch? You should have thought of that by now, especially after how many things have gone wrong.